My name is Sarah, and I'm 28 years old. I thought family was supposed to lift you up when the world knocked you down, until I realized mine had been the ones doing the knocking all along. Growing up as the middle child in the Rodriguez family meant living in permanent shadows. My older brother Marcus was everything my parents dreamed of: Harvard law graduate, partner at a prestigious firm by 30, married to a doctor, living in a house that could fit 3 of my apartments. My younger sister Elena was the artistic genius, her paintings selling for thousands while she was still in college, gallery owners calling her the next big thing before she even turned 21. And then there was me, Sarah, the one who dropped out of college twice, who couldn't hold down a job for more than 6 months, who lived paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's dumpling shop. The disappointment, the black sheep, the failure. My parents never said it directly, but I felt it in every family gathering. The way Dad would hesitate before introducing me to his colleagues. This is Sarah, she's figuring things out. The way Mom would quickly change the subject when neighbors asked about her children. Marcus just made partner, and Elena has an exhibition coming up. Sarah is exploring different opportunities. Exploring different opportunities. That was code for unemployed again. I'd tried everything. Marketing assistant, retail manager, administrative coordinator, freelance graphic designer. Nothing stuck. Nothing felt right. I'd watch Marcus in his tailored suits talking about million-dollar cases, and Elena in her paint-splattered aprons discussing her artistic vision, and I'd wonder what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I find my place in the world? The worst part wasn't the job struggles or the financial stress. It was watching my parents' faces during family dinners. The subtle disappointment when I'd mention another job interview that didn't pan out. The way they'd light up talking about Marcus's latest court victory or Elena's newest commission. Then their expressions would dim when the conversation turned to me. Sarah's still figuring out her path, Dad would say with a forced smile. Some people are late bloomers. Late bloomers. At 28, I was starting to think my bloom had withered before it even opened. Last Christmas, I'd overheard Mom on the phone with my aunt. I don't know what we did wrong with Sarah. Marcus and Elena turned out so well, but Sarah, she just can't seem to get her life together. We've helped her financially so many times, but nothing changes. Sometimes I wonder if we enabled her too much. That conversation played in my head for months. The shame of it. The realization that I'd become the family charity case, the cautionary tale they'd probably tell their grandchildren someday. But what they didn't know, what nobody knew, was that I'd been working on something. Something that started as a desperate attempt to make rent 3 months ago and had quietly grown into something I'd never expected. It began when Mrs. Chen asked if I could help her create a website for her restaurant. She offered me free dumplings for a month in exchange for building something simple. I said yes because I was broke and hungry, not because I thought I was good at it. But as I worked on her site, something clicked. I found myself staying up until 3 a.m., not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I researched her competitors, analyzed their online presence, crafted her story in a way that made people care about her little family restaurant. When the site went live, her takeout orders doubled within 2 weeks. Word spread quietly in the neighborhood. The coffee shop owner asked me to update his social media. The boutique down the street needed help with their online store. The yoga studio wanted a complete digital makeover. Each project taught me something new, and each success gave me a confidence I'd never felt before. I wasn't making much money yet, certainly not enough to impress my family, but for the first time in my life, I was building something that felt like mine. Something that mattered. Still, I kept quiet about it. Past disappointments had taught me to manage expectations, especially my family's. I'd rather be seen as a failure than as someone who tried and failed again. Dad's 60th birthday was approaching, and Mom had been planning this celebration for months. It's going to be perfect, she'd said during our last phone call. All the important people in your father's life will be there. His partners, his clients, family, friends. It's going to be quite the evening. The way she said important people made it clear where I ranked on that list. I'd been dreading the party for weeks, knowing it would be another opportunity to feel small in a room full of accomplished people. But I had no idea that this birthday would change everything. I had no idea they were planning to make my failure official. The betrayal started with perfect calligraphy. I arrived at my parents' house 30 minutes early, hoping to help Mom with last-minute preparations and maybe earn some goodwill before the evening began. The dining room looked like something from a magazine, crystal glasses catching the chandelier light, white roses arranged with architectural precision, place cards written in Mom's elegant script positioned at each seat. "Oh, good. You're here," Mom said without looking up from arranging appetizers. "Could you double-check the seating chart? I want everything perfect for your father." I walked around the long mahogany table, admiring her attention to detail. Each place card was a work of art, the names written in gold ink on cream cardstock. I found Marcus's seat at Dad's right hand, Marcus Rodriguez, in beautiful flourishes. Elena's card sat near Mom's end of the table, Elena Rodriguez, with little artistic swirls that matched her personality. Then I found my spot, far from the head of the table, tucked between Dad's business partner's wife and Elena's boyfriend. But it wasn't just the placement that made my stomach drop. There was something else under my place card. I lifted the corner carefully, thinking maybe an extra napkin had gotten stuck underneath. Instead, I found a small folded piece of the same cream cardstock. My hands trembled as I opened it. Failure was written in the same gold ink, in the same perfect calligraphy. My breath caught. This had to be a mistake. Some kind of accident. Maybe one of Mom's draft cards had gotten mixed up with the final versions. I looked around the table frantically, checking other seats for similar mistakes. Marcus's seat had an additional card, Success. Elena's had Rising Star. Dad's business partner had Achievement. His wife had Grace. Even Elena's boyfriend, who I barely knew, had a card reading Promise. The pattern became sickeningly clear. Everyone had a card. Everyone had a label. And mine was the only negative one. "Mom?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. "What are these cards under the place settings?" She looked up from the appetizer tray, her face brightening. "Oh, those. Aren't they lovely? I got the idea from a magazine. Each guest gets a word that represents how we see them, their essence, their contribution to our lives. It's like a personal blessing from the hosts. And you chose failure for me." The question hung in the air like smoke. Mom's smile faltered for just a moment before reassembling itself into something more determined. "Sarah, sweetheart, it's not meant to be cruel. Your father and I discussed it and we thought, well, maybe some tough love might motivate you. You're 28 years old and you're still struggling to find your way. Sometimes people need to hear hard truths to inspire change." I stared at her, this woman who had raised me, who had kissed my scraped knees and helped me with homework and taught me how to braid my hair. This woman who had just labeled me a failure in front of everyone important in my father's life. "You want me to sit here all evening with failure in front of me? While everyone else gets words like success and achievement. It's just for tonight, honey. And who knows? Maybe in a year or two, your card will say something different. But right now, if we're being honest about where you are in life." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The front door opened, and I could hear Dad's voice greeting early arrivals. The sound of laughter and conversation began to fill the house. Soon, 25 people would be sitting around this table, and they would all see my card. They would all know that my own parents had labeled me a failure. "I need some air," I managed to say. I walked out to the backyard, my legs feeling unsteady. The card was still crumpled in my fist. Failure. Written in beautiful script, like it was something to be celebrated. My phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, I opened it. "Sarah, the Peterson Group wants to move forward with the full digital marketing package. $50,000 for the 6-month contract. Can you start Monday? This is amazing. You're going to change everything for us." I read the message 3 times before it sank in. The Peterson Group. The tech startup I'd been pitching for weeks. $50,000. More money than I'd ever seen in one place. More money than Marcus made in 2 months at his fancy law firm. I looked back at the house, at the warm lights, and the sound of celebration, at the dining room where my failure card waited. Then I looked at my phone again, at the message that proved everything my family believed about me was wrong. They wanted to make my failure official tonight. They had no idea what was coming next. The text message was just the beginning. I stood in my parents' backyard, staring at my phone screen as more notifications flooded in. 3 more client inquiries. A payment confirmation for last month's work. A notification that my business bank account had reached a balance I'd never dreamed possible 6 months ago. For the past 3 months, I'd been quietly building something extraordinary. What started as helping Mrs. Chen with her restaurant website had grown into a full digital marketing consultancy. I'd been working 16-hour days, learning everything I could about SEO, social media strategy, content creation, and business development. But I'd kept it secret. After years of family disappointment, I couldn't bear the thought of announcing another venture that might fail. So I worked in silence, building my client base one small business at a time, proving to myself that I could succeed before I had to prove it to anyone else. The Peterson Group contract wasn't just big money, it was validation. They were a Series A startup with serious investors, and they'd chosen me over 3 established marketing agencies. They believed in my vision for their brand, my strategy for their growth, my ability to deliver results. I scrolled through my business email, reading messages I'd been too nervous about the party to check earlier. A boutique hotel chain wanted to discuss a monthly retainer. A nonprofit organization had seen my work with the local women's shelter and wanted to hire me for their capital campaign. A tech company in Seattle was asking about my availability for a product launch. In the span of 3 months, I'd gone from unemployed to having more work than I could handle. My income last month had exceeded what I used to make in half a year at my previous jobs. But more than the money, I'd found something I'd been searching for my entire adult life: purpose. Every website I built, every social media campaign I created, every brand story I crafted, it all mattered. I was helping small businesses thrive, nonprofits reach their goals, entrepreneurs turn their dreams into reality. For the first time in my life, I was genuinely good at something. Not just competent, but exceptional. Clients weren't just satisfied, they were amazed. They referred their friends, left glowing testimonials, renewed contracts before they expired. I thought about Marcus in his expensive suits, arguing cases for corporations that barely noticed his existence. I thought about Elena, creating beautiful art that hung in galleries where the same wealthy collectors bought pieces like accessories. They were successful in traditional ways, but were they actually changing anything? Were they building something meaningful? Another text came through, this one from David Chen, Mrs. Chen's son who managed the restaurant's business operations. Sarah, you genius. Our online orders are up 300% since the website launch. Mom wants to expand to catering because of the demand. Can we meet this week to discuss the marketing strategy? You've literally transformed our family business. I smiled, remembering how Mrs. Chen had hugged me last week, tears in her eyes, telling me in broken English that I'd saved her restaurant. That meant more to me than any family approval ever had. The back door opened, and Dad stepped outside. Sarah, everything okay? Our guests are starting to arrive. I looked at him, this man who had raised me, who had taught me to drive, and helped me move into countless apartments, who was about to publicly label me a failure. Did he have any idea what I'd accomplished? Had he ever asked about my work beyond polite, dismissive questions? Dad, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. When people ask about your children, what do you tell them about me? He shifted uncomfortably. I tell them you're finding your way, that you're exploring different opportunities. But what if I told you I've found my way? What if I told you I've built something incredible? His smile was patient, condescending. Sarah, I know you're working on some computer projects, and that's great. But tonight isn't about work. It's about family, about celebrating computer projects. I repeated his words slowly. Dad, do you know what I actually do? You help businesses with their websites, right? It's nice that you're keeping busy. Keeping busy. Like my work was a hobby. Like the business I'd built from nothing was just a way to pass time between real jobs. I pulled up my business banking app and showed him the screen. His eyes widened as he saw the balance. This is from the past 3 months, I said quietly. From those computer projects you think are keeping me busy. He stared at the numbers. Sarah, is this real? Very real. And there's more coming. The Peterson Group just contracted me for $50,000. I have clients waiting for proposals worth twice that. The color drained from his face. But why didn't you tell us? I thought about the failure card waiting at my place setting. About years of subtle disappointment and not so subtle concern. About being the family charity case, the cautionary tale, the late bloomer who never bloomed. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me until I had proof. Because I needed to prove it to myself first. Sarah, I had no idea. If I had known you would have what, Dad? Not labeled me a failure at your birthday party. His face went white. How did you? I pulled the crumpled card from my pocket. I found my place setting. For the first time in my adult life, I saw my father speechless. And I realized that this moment, this revelation, was just the beginning. They had no idea what was coming next. That night, I went home and made a decision that would change everything. I sat at my kitchen table with the failure card spread flat in front of me, staring at those gold letters that had been meant to shame me into submission. Instead, they ignited something I'd never felt before, a burning determination to show my family exactly who I'd become. But I wasn't going to do it with angry words or dramatic confrontations. I was going to do it the way I'd built my business, strategically, methodically, and with undeniable results. First, I opened my laptop and began documenting everything. Screenshots of client testimonials, bank statements showing my income growth, contracts worth more money than my family had ever imagined I could earn. I organized it all into a portfolio that told the story of my transformation from family disappointment to successful entrepreneur. The Peterson Group contract was just the beginning. Over the next 2 weeks, I leveraged that success into 3 more major deals. A restaurant chain wanted me to handle their digital expansion across 5 cities. A real estate company hired me to rebrand their entire online presence. A wellness startup offered me equity in addition to a substantial monthly retainer. I worked 18-hour days, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Every new client, every successful campaign, every 5-star review was proof that I wasn't the person my family thought I was. I was building something bigger than just a business. I was building an empire. But success wasn't enough. I needed to understand exactly how wrong my family's perceptions had been. So I started researching Marcus and Elena's achievements more carefully. Marcus's law firm was impressive, but when I dug deeper, I discovered he was one of 15 junior partners in a firm of 60 lawyers. His salary, while substantial, was fixed. He had no equity, no ownership, no real control over his future. He was successful, but he was also an employee. Elena's art career looked glamorous from the outside, but the numbers told a different story. Gallery sales were sporadic, and after the gallery's commission, the framing costs, and the supplies, her actual profit was surprisingly modest. She supplemented her income by teaching art classes to children and selling smaller pieces at local craft fairs. Neither of them had built anything from scratch. Neither of them owned their success or controlled their destiny. They had impressive jobs, but I was building an actual business. The revelation that changed everything came during a late-night research session. I was investigating potential clients when I stumbled across something that made my heart race. Rodriguez and Associates, Dad's law firm, was struggling. Their website looked like it hadn't been updated since 2015. Their social media presence was non-existent. Their online reviews were mediocre, filled with complaints about poor communication and outdated processes. In a world where clients increasingly chose service providers based on digital presence, Rodriguez and Associates was invisible. More concerning was what I found in the legal industry publications. Traditional law firms were losing clients to boutique practices that offered better client experience and more modern approaches. Firms that didn't adapt were closing their doors. I dug deeper, using the business research skills I developed for client proposals. Dad's firm had lost 3 major clients in the past year. Their revenue was down 30%. 2 of his partners were nearing retirement, and there were rumors about internal conflicts over the firm's direction. The prestigious law firm that represented everything my family valued was failing in the digital age. And I had exactly the skills they needed to save it. But I wasn't going to offer help. Not yet. Not when they'd labeled me a failure without ever bothering to understand what I was capable of. Instead, I spent the next week working on something special. I created a comprehensive digital marketing proposal for Rodriguez and Associates, a complete transformation of their online presence, client acquisition strategy, and brand positioning. I researched their competitors, analyzed their market position, and developed a strategy that could triple their revenue within 18 months. It was the best work I'd ever done. 47 pages of detailed analysis, creative solutions, and projected outcomes. If implemented, it would revolutionize their practice and secure their future for decades. I printed the proposal on premium paper and had it professionally bound. On the cover, I placed a small label, for when you're ready to value real success. Next, I reached out to my network. 3 months of successful client work had connected me with dozens of business owners, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders. I invited several of them to lunch meetings, not to sell them services, but to ask them about their own family relationships and how they'd handled moments of doubt or criticism. Their stories amazed me. The restaurant owner whose parents had wanted him to be a doctor. The tech entrepreneur whose family thought she was wasting her engineering degree. The nonprofit director whose relatives still asked when she was going to get a real job. All of them had faced family skepticism. All of them had proven their doubters wrong. And all of them had learned the same lesson I was discovering. Sometimes the people who are supposed to support you most are the ones who understand you least. But they also taught me something else. Success wasn't about proving other people wrong. It was about proving yourself right. The best revenge wasn't making others feel small, but becoming so successful that their opinions became irrelevant. During one of these conversations, Maria Santos, the owner of a boutique marketing agency, made an observation that stopped me cold. You know, Sarah, what you've built in 3 months would normally take someone 3 years. You have a gift for this work, but more than that, you have the hunger that only comes from having something to prove. That's your secret weapon. She was right. Every client rejection I'd ever faced, every family disappointment, every moment of self-doubt had forged me into someone who refused to accept failure. While Marcus and Elena had succeeded within existing systems, I had created my own system from nothing. As Dad's birthday approached, I made my final preparations. I had the proof of my success. I had the proposal that could save his firm. I had the confidence that came from knowing my worth. But most importantly, I had a plan. They thought they knew who I was. They had no idea what was coming next. Dad's birthday party was exactly as I'd expected, and nothing like they'd planned. I arrived fashionably late, wearing the black dress I'd bought to celebrate signing my biggest contract. Confidence changes how clothes fit, and I carried myself differently now. The nervous energy that usually plagued me at family gatherings had been replaced by something steadier, more purposeful. The dining room buzzed with conversation. Dad's colleagues, longtime family friends, Marcus with his perfect wife, Elena with her artistic boyfriend, all gathered around the table where my failure card still waited. Sarah. Mom rushed over, her smile tight with anxiety. You look lovely, dear. Are you feeling better? Much better, Mom. Thank you. I took my assigned seat, noting how every guest found their cards as they sat down. The room filled with pleased murmurs as people discovered their labels. Leadership, wisdom, creativity, dedication. And then there was mine. Several guests glanced at it curiously, their expressions shifting from confusion to discomfort. I smiled and placed it carefully beside my plate where everyone could see it clearly. Marcus leaned over. Sarah, what's that about? Mom and Dad's idea, I said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. A word that represents how they see each of us. Apparently, I'm the family failure. The conversations around us quieted. Dad's business partner, Robert Chin, looked from the card to my parents with obvious confusion. That seems harsh. Oh, it's very accurate, I continued, my voice carrying across the table. At least, it was accurate 3 months ago. Things change so quickly in business, don't they, Dad? Dad had gone pale. He started to speak, but I wasn't finished. In fact, I brought something to share with everyone tonight. A little birthday surprise for Dad. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. Dad, you know how you always say family should support each other? Well, I've been thinking about that a lot lately. The entire table was watching now. I stood up, the failure card in one hand, the envelope in the other. 3 months ago, I was exactly what this card says. Unemployed, struggling, living paycheck to paycheck above Mrs. Chen's restaurant. I nodded to Robert, who was listening intently. Your mother makes amazing dumplings, by the way. A few people chuckled nervously, but then Mrs. Chen asked me to help with something small. A website for her restaurant. Just a favor between neighbors. I opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. This is her revenue report from last month. Her online orders increased 300% after the website launch. Her business went from struggling to thriving. I set the paper on the table where everyone could see it. Word spread, as word does. Small businesses started asking for help with their online presence. Coffee shops, boutiques, yoga studios. Nothing glamorous, just people trying to build something meaningful. I pulled out more documents. These are testimonials from those clients. And these are the contracts they signed. The room was completely silent now. Dad, you taught me that success isn't about the money, it's about the impact you make. So let me tell you about impact. I placed a bound report on the table. This is a case study of the Peterson Group, a startup that was struggling to reach their target market. They hired me last month to handle their digital marketing strategy. I opened to a page filled with charts and graphs. Their customer acquisition increased 400% in 3 weeks. Their revenue doubled. They just secured Series B funding, and their investors specifically mentioned their marketing strategy as a key factor. Robert Chen picked up the report, examining it closely. As a successful businessman himself, he clearly understood what he was seeing. This is impressive, Sarah. Very impressive. Thank you, Mr. Chen. But that's not why I'm sharing this. I pulled out another document, the proposal I'd prepared for Rodriguez and Associates. Dad, I know your firm has been facing some challenges lately. Client retention, online visibility, competition from more modern practices. Dad's face went white. How I knew about his firm's struggles wasn't important. What mattered was that I knew, and I was offering a solution. This is a comprehensive digital transformation proposal specifically designed for Rodriguez and Associates. Market analysis, competitive positioning, client acquisition strategy, brand modernization, everything you need to not just survive in the current legal market, but thrive. I set the proposal in front of him. Implementation of this strategy could triple your firm's revenue within 18 months. I've already identified 12 potential new clients who are looking for exactly the services you provide, but they can't find you because your online presence is virtually non-existent. The table erupted in murmurs. Everyone was leaning forward, trying to see the documents, trying to understand what was happening. Sarah, Dad whispered, how did I know your firm was struggling? How did I develop the expertise to create something like this? How did I go from the family failure to someone whose business skills could save your career? I looked around the table at all these successful people who had labeled me, dismissed me, written me off. Because while you were all focused on traditional markers of success, impressive titles, steady salaries, conventional achievements, I was building something from nothing. While Marcus was working for other people's law firms, I was creating my own business. While Elena was painting for other people's galleries, I was developing my own client base. I picked up my failure card and held it up for everyone to see. This card was supposed to motivate me through shame. Instead, it motivated me through spite. I tore it in half. For 3 months, I worked 18-hour days not because I had to, but because I had something to prove. Not to clients, not to the market, but to the people who were supposed to believe in me from the beginning. Marcus tried to interrupt. Sarah, we didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. You never took my work seriously enough to understand what I was building. You saw me struggling with traditional jobs and assumed I was just, what was the phrase, Mom? A late bloomer. I pulled out my phone and showed them my business banking app. This is my account balance from this morning. This represents 3 months of work, building a business that now has a 6-month waiting list for new clients. The number on the screen made several people gasp audibly. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice steady and calm. Dad, you can hire me to save your firm at my standard consulting rate, which is considerably higher than what you pay your junior associates. Or you can continue struggling while I build my business into something that makes your entire profession look obsolete. I gathered my documents and stood up. Either way, I'm never sitting at another table where someone has labeled me a failure. I know exactly who I am now. The room was completely silent as I walked toward the door. Happy birthday, Dad. I hope you finally got the surprise you deserved. The aftermath was everything I had hoped for and nothing I had expected. Within hours of leaving Dad's birthday party, my phone started ringing. Robert Chun called first, wanting to discuss my services for his import business. Then came calls from 2 other guests who owned companies, both interested in digital marketing consultations. But the call that surprised me most came at 7 a.m. the next morning. Sarah, it's Dad. Can we talk? His voice was different, smaller, uncertain in a way I'd never heard before. The authoritative tone he used in courtrooms and family discussions was gone, replaced by something that sounded almost vulnerable. I'm listening. I've been up all night reading your proposal. Sarah, this is extraordinary work. Professional grade beyond what our firm has ever seen. He paused, and I could hear him struggling with words. I had no idea you were capable of something like this, because you never asked what I was capable of. You're right. God, you're absolutely right, and I'm ashamed of that. His voice cracked slightly. That card last night, your mother and I thought we were helping. We thought maybe some tough love would motivate you to find direction. We had no idea you'd already found it. I waited, letting him sit with the discomfort of his own words. The firm is in trouble, Sarah. Worse than you probably realize. We're hemorrhaging clients to younger, more tech-savvy practices. 2 of my partners want to retire, but we can't afford their buyouts. I've been losing sleep for months, wondering if everything I built is going to collapse. And now I'm wondering if my daughter could save it all. The conversation that followed was unlike any we'd ever had. Dad asked detailed questions about my business, my clients, my strategies. For the first time in my adult life, he was genuinely interested in my work, not just politely inquiring, but actively engaging with the specifics of what I'd built. I want to hire you, he said finally. Not as a favor, not as family help, but as a legitimate business consultation. Full rate, professional contract, everything above board. And the rest of the family? He was quiet for a long moment. Your mother cried for 2 hours after you left. She kept saying she didn't understand how we got it so wrong. Marcus has been calling all morning, asking for your contact information. He wants to refer some of his clients to you. Apparently, several have been asking about digital marketing services. And Elena? Elena said something I can't stop thinking about. She said, Sarah built something beautiful from nothing, just like I do with my art. The difference is, she built something that actually helps people survive and thrive. That's not failure, that's magic. The validation felt surreal. For months, I'd been working toward this moment, proving my worth, demonstrating my value, showing them who I really was. But now that it was happening, the satisfaction was more complex than I'd anticipated. 3 days later, I met with Dad and his remaining partners at their office. The building was impressive from the outside, but inside I could see the signs of a business struggling to adapt. Outdated computers, filing systems that belonged in the 1990s, a reception area that screamed expensive but behind the times. I presented my proposal in their conference room, the same way I would for any client. Professional, thorough, focused on results. The partners asked intelligent questions, and I realized that despite their digital limitations, they were sharp business minds who understood value when they saw it. This is exactly what we need, said Margaret Torres, one of the senior partners. Sarah, if you can deliver even half of what you're projecting, you'll have saved all our careers. The contract I signed with Rodriguez and Associates was the largest in my company's short history. But more than the money, it represented something I'd been seeking my entire adult life: professional respect from the people who had raised me. Within a month, their website traffic increased 500%. New client inquiries went from 2 or 3 per week to 15 per day. I streamlined their intake process, modernized their communication systems, and helped them develop service packages that attracted exactly the type of clients they wanted to work with. Marcus started referring his contacts to me regularly. Elena commissioned me to handle the digital marketing for her upcoming gallery exhibition. Mom began introducing me to her friends as my daughter, the successful entrepreneur. But the sweetest justice came in an unexpected form. 6 weeks after Dad's birthday party, I received an email from Mrs. Chen's son David. "Sarah, because of the success you brought to our restaurant, Mom wants to expand into catering and eventually open a second location. But she has one condition. She wants you to handle all the marketing for the expansion. She says you're the only person she trusts with her family's future." That email meant more to me than any family approval ever could. Mrs. Chen understood something my own family had taken months to learn. Success isn't measured by traditional markers or other people's expectations. It's measured by the positive impact you have on the world around you. I had gone from family failure to family savior, but more importantly, I had become exactly who I was meant to be. 6 months later, I moved out of the studio apartment above Mrs. Chen's dumpling shop and into a downtown loft that doubled as my company headquarters. Rodriguez Digital Solutions now employed 4 people, 2 junior marketing specialists, a graphic designer, and a client relations coordinator. We had a 6-month waiting list for new clients and a 95% retention rate. The business I'd started as a desperate attempt to make rent had become everything I'd never dared to dream of. But the real transformation wasn't in my bank account or my office space. It was in my relationships. Dad and I met for coffee every Tuesday morning now, not as father and struggling daughter, but as business colleagues who respected each other's expertise. He implemented every suggestion from my proposal, and Rodriguez and Associates became the most profitable law firm in the city within 4 months. More importantly, our conversations weren't filled with his disappointment or my defensiveness anymore. We talked about strategy, growth, industry trends, the kinds of discussions I'd always watched him have with Marcus. Mom started volunteering to help with my smaller nonprofit clients, using her event planning skills to coordinate fundraising campaigns. She never directly apologized for the failure card, but she didn't need to. The pride in her voice when she introduced me to her book club as my daughter, the CEO said everything that needed to be said. Marcus and I developed a genuine friendship for the first time since childhood. He referred so many clients to me that I had to create a formal referral program with commission structures. Elena and I collaborated on a series of art pieces inspired by successful local businesses, combining her creativity with my understanding of brand storytelling. The success felt surreal sometimes. I'd wake up in my beautiful loft, look at my team working on campaigns for clients across 3 states, and remember that 6 months ago, my own family had labeled me a failure. But the moment that truly showed me how far I'd come happened on a random Thursday afternoon. I was reviewing client proposals when my assistant knocked on my office door. "Sarah, there's someone here to see you." Says it's personal. I looked up to see Mrs. Chen standing in my doorway, holding a small wrapped package. Behind her stood her entire family, David, his wife, their 2 young children. "Mrs. Chen, what brings you here?" She smiled and bowed slightly, then handed me the package. Inside was a beautiful piece of calligraphy in Chinese characters, professionally framed. "What does it say?" I asked. David translated, his voice thick with emotion. "It says the person who helps others succeed will always succeed herself. Mom had it made for you because she says you didn't just save our restaurant. You taught her that failure is just success waiting to happen." I hung that frame right next to my desk, where I could see it every day. It reminded me that success isn't about proving other people wrong, it's about proving yourself right. The business continued to grow, but I made sure to never lose sight of what had brought me here. Every client meeting, every strategy session, every late night working on someone's dream, it all mattered because I remembered what it felt like to have people doubt your potential. My family learned to see me differently, but more importantly, I learned to see myself differently. I wasn't the failure they had labeled me. I wasn't even the success I had become. I was simply Sarah Rodriguez, a woman who had figured out how to turn other people's skepticism into her own determination. And that was exactly who I was meant to be. Looking back on that night with the failure card, I realized it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because my family was right to doubt me, but because their doubt forced me to discover strengths I never knew I had. Success isn't about meeting other people's expectations, it's about exceeding your own. It's not about proving you belong at someone else's table. It's about building your own table and deciding who deserves a seat. My family thought they knew who I was based on my past struggles. They couldn't see that every failure had been preparing me for something bigger. Every job I lost taught me what I didn't want. Every financial struggle made me resourceful. Every moment of doubt made me more determined. Today, when people ask me about my business, I tell them it started with a failure card and a dumpling shop. Because sometimes the best success stories begin with someone believing you can't succeed. I'm curious, what part of this story surprised you the most? Was it the family's reaction, the business transformation, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about turning life setbacks into comebacks.